Hello everyone, hello everyone. I have the chance today to welcome Loaf, Lord of a Few, who has been like working for now and knowing as well for now about like a year and a half, maybe 2 years. He's one of the OG of Starknet community. Have been working on Realms and with the Biblioteca DAO since a long time now. They were able a few months ago to put a raise and was successfully raising money. So now I know that a lot of contributors to the Biblioteca DAO building Realms, Adventurer as well, and so many other games. So I think today it's about the new genre of game, Play to Die. So yeah, welcome Loaf.
Mm,
Welcome
yeah.
Loaf.
Thanks for having me. Yeah. Yeah. We'll. I think. What, how many people? Is that three people here? Is that right?
Yeah, it's three
Uh.
people, but it tends
Yeah.
to go higher after a few minutes. We have like an
Yeah. Cool.
average of 15 people
Cool.
normally.
Cool. Cool. Yeah. I mean, that little quick background on myself. I started building um these on-chain games back in September 21, just straight after the loot craze, and that's how Realms and Biblioteca um kind of spawned. And um, we really like back then. On-chain gaming was pretty. I mean, it was niche. I mean, it's still a niche, but back then it was very niche. And we tried to build a game using just the realms, and we tried to build it on Arbitrum. But we quickly realized that the um, the EVM just wasn't really up to what we really wanted to do. And so we actually built a prototype in a couple of months, and yeah, there's like 50 people that played it. But we realized like the gas costs were going to be too much, and the EVM just isn't very EVM solidity just isn't very good to write like on-chain games with. It wasn't back then. I mean, it's definitely evolved since then, and the guys at Mud came out. Well, the guys at Lattice came out with Mud, which was a huge leap forward in building games on the EVM. Um, but we still feel like, and we got a lot of like huge respect for those guys. They're doing some crazy stuff and have inspired a lot of people. But we still feel, like myself and the Dojo crew, that you know, uh, like the long term play for on chain games is like moving away from the EVM as as the execution layer, because really it's not really designed for that. It's really designed as like a low power execution, data layer. Um, and since this was actually one of the things that excited us most about Starknet back in September of 21. Um, was this idea of like EVM compatibility, but not EVM. And so by that I mean just you can write your stuff in Cairo and you can run it on the Cairo VM, and you still can inherit the security of L1, but you're not really constrained to to like the you're constrained to the EVM. So it just opens up a lot more design scope. Um, and like that after we kind of made that decision, we started building a Starknet, and in hindsight, Starknet was definitely way too early back then. Um, um, but even with Kara Zero, it showed a lot of promise. And we kind of built our original game on with Kara Zero all of last year, and we deployed like a basic version in January. Um, but really, like I think, yeah, I mean, when Mud came out, um, it flicked a switch, um, in in a direction of like, or made us all think, is the approach that we're taking, building games on Starknet, the right one? Um, and that kind of led us to create Dojo as this complete tool chain to build on-chain games with, because building on-chain games is very it's there's a lot to it, and people getting started, it's very hard. So Dojo is kind of the amalgamation of all of our learnings for the past like two years, and a lot of teams are collaborating on it. So yeah, that's kind of the origins of Dojo. Sorry, I went off a little bit of a tangent then. But yeah, should I just get going on my get my slides up? So today I'm like, this is going to be pretty free flowing, and if anyone has any questions, just like pop them in. And there's like 11 people watching, so uh, feel free to just ask. I'm kind of going to go through. Hang on, just let me share my screen. I wonder if I should share my whole screen. Actually, no, I might just do a tab. All right, is that good? Okay, we're good. Okay, we're good. Yeah, so I'll just start off with like a little prediction that maybe we can revisit this in 12 to 24 months. But uh, I predict that within 12 to 24 months, on-chain games and autonomous worlds are going to be the largest consumers of block space in the world. And that's like, I don't know, it seems pretty clear to me. Because like in like the whole, I don't think crypto even has like market fit. Like, I mean, you could say DeFi has some market fit, but it's really not that many people that are going to trade DeFi that are kind of using DeFi. It's very it's an elite few people that actually use it. It's not your general populace, but your general populace actually do play a lot of games, and so you know these on-chain world on-chain games and autonomous worlds just consume so many resources, and so much block space that like as soon as a couple of these things go viral and there's a few successful ones, they're probably going to consume all the block space that we have right now. Um, that's like across all L2s. It's going to be nuts. But luckily, the Starknet scaling, other L2s are scaling, and there's going to be more block space. But um, I think that these things are going to consume ridiculous amounts within 12 to 24 months. But we're still so early in this space, and like we're all still trying to figure out how to build these things. That's why Dojo exists. That's why Mud exists. That's why we're doing this hackathon right now. And it's still a work in progress. It's kind of like uh, I see these games. I'll just jump to this part. Maybe we'll jump around a little bit, but as my train of thought just goes. Um, I see these games as it's like a whole new medium. You've got console, you've got PC, you've got mobile, and I wouldn't really include the games that we've seen in the past few years as like on-chain games, like, or even Web3 games. They're more like Web 2.5 games. They're like the Axion, those type of games that are like uh, off-chain assets, on-chain assets with like some off-chain logic. Ah, okay, hang on. That's okay. There we go. That's good. Okay. Um, yeah. So like these type of games that don't really exist yet. They're like, I mean, Dark Forest kind of started it. Um, but there aren't really any major on-chain games that are deployed to production yet. And that's actually due to like a technology thing. Like I don't really see like massive on-chain games existing until like post 4844, when the cost to store data um, becomes significantly cheaper. But it's the perfect time to start building these things. Um, and people often ask like, why are we even doing this? Um, and like as gamers, you know, we want to own the things, and we want to be part of the story our games. And you can't really do that in a Web 2 environment because it's very um, it's not conducive of like a Web 2 or like a traditional game kind of business model. It's not really designed for the players. It's very extractive. Um, and with on-chain gaming, when you play these games, you own all the data that you put on the chain. You're making that little transaction, and you're in complete control of that. And so, you can choose to expand the game, and when you expand the game, that expansion will always exist, and no one can actually stop you from doing that expansion. And so it's like user-generated content on this new medium, and this had never really been possible before. Everything's been confined to single servers, and big mm, big organizations holding the keys to everything. And so this is like a chance where we can create these autonomous worlds that are persistent and forever um, on these chains, and anyone can come and join, and no one can be censored, and the like the line between developer and player is blurred. So these are some of the things that I'm extremely excited about, and this is why I'm kind of dedicating my life to it right now. Um, so I kind of jumped around a little bit, but background about me: um, I've been building Realms in Biblioteca for year and a half now. Um, and one of the founding members of Dojo, and Dojo is kind of getting escape velocity at the moment. But come and visit those two Discords after this if you're not already there. But I'm assuming most people on the call are probably there. Um, I've kind of gone through Dojo. Um, yeah, I'll touch on it a bit more. But like when we were building our game, um, like there's a lot of stuff in the infrastructure stack that like doesn't need to be rebuilt again. But every team right now is basically recreating the entire stack from scratch. So, a gaming stack includes, contracts, and also like contract architecture. Contracts themselves are already hard enough to write, and then you're trying to write a game in them. It's like hard mode. Um, and so you got contracts design, and then you've also got indexing. So you gotta figure out a way, and like the graph just isn't. You can't just use the graph for these things. Um, so you need a custom indexer to index all your events, and then you need like client connections to the chain and the indexer, as well as like um, any other scaling solutions like a Redis database to help you scale your RPC requests. Otherwise, you'll get $1 million bill from Alchemy, or you'll just kill your client. So there's all these like little bits that are involved in building these stacks. So Dojo is made to remove all this, so you can just get going in like in a few hours. I actually after this Notion page, we'll go into the demo I built, and I built it this afternoon actually in about 3 hours. So it just goes to show like how quickly you can like prototype an idea using the Dojo framework, which is really what it's about right now. It's like uh, it's just about experimentation and just trying a lot of things in these games, and just seeing what works, seeing what's fun, because we don't really know right now. It's just worth trying everything, and just getting a prototype as fast as possible, and a playable prototype as fast as possible. And so, yeah, what we're doing at Biblio right now is we're building the Realms Autonomous World on Dojo, and like we're starting with a. I'll share a link to the art repo after this. I'm probably not going to go through it because there's a lot of stuff going on with it, and new people might be a bit overwhelmed. But it's an example of how you can build a pretty complex Dojo world, and it's still only really just a beginning. Um, And it comes to like the title of this whole talk, which is Play to Die. So we've been talking about Play to Die for like a year now. And the idea, like Play to Die is kind of a rough term. Like it's not anything concrete. It's really just this idea of more ephemeral style on-chain games. So, what we're trying to do with the Realms Autonomous World and Eternum, which is the game we've been building, it's a lot complex and it's like an MMO. It's like, there's a lot involved in that. There's a lot to think about every day. It's a complex economic system. And Play to Die games are more like, simple, just, they cost, a few cents to play. And a game cycle might take a couple of hours. Oh, sorry, not a couple of hours. Might take like half an hour in total to play. And then you eventually just die. So, everyone likes playing roguelike games. And so they're kind of like on-chain roguelike games, but they're not all just roguelike games. They can be anything. It's just more like ephemeral little games that, you come and play. They're simple. You can jump in. They don't take too much mental thought. And what we really like about this idea is that, we get this like level of persistence with these games. So, you know, um, you can just deploy one of these things and they just exist, on chain forever. And so they're like this old, they're like a dusty arcade machine. And, um, you know, someone will have the high score in this game, and it's going to take someone else to try and beat them. But it'll just exist there forever. Um, so that's what's really appealing to us, is this idea of like a arcade machine that anyone can play and it's forever. Um, and the cool thing is that you could just fork these games and tweak them to a different experience, or you can build a different client for these arcades. Perhaps a more high fidelity client. Um, Yeah, so that's played it out in a nutshell. But really, it's a pretty loose term. It's just a low cost to enter. You're going to play the game and you're going to die, and whatever comes in between there. Um, so yeah, I'm going to get into I'll check any chats. No, nothing in chat. Um, so I hope everyone's kind of got stuck into Dojo already. Hang on, I'm just going to swap screens. Oh, okay, that might be really small. How's that? I just have a really large screen. Is that all right?
There's a little bit delay as well within the chat, so let's wait if it's cool.
All right. How's that?
Il y a le côté un peu plus très hiérarchisé.
All right. Is that better?
Yeah, I think that would be better. Yeah.
All right. That's not used to writing code this size, but cool. So I thought just a good thing would just be to make a mini game this afternoon in Dojo to show how it can be done, and I'll go through this bit by bit, yeah, and I'll get it up and running. And I still have a couple bugs I didn't manage to fix, but this is actually all up on GitHub now. So if any Chad wants to like try and fix the bug, which I'll indicate, you'd be a legend. I ran out of time, but anyway, we'll learn a lot by doing this. So the first thing to do is you know, when you get Dojo, I'll just get the command. It's really actually it's very simple, like to get Dojo up and running. So all you need to do is go to dojo.org. So I'll just write in here. Just go there and get the kill command and just do this. Just all you got to do, and then install like this Dojo up. And what this does is this installs it installs Katana, which is the Dojo RPC network, like a test net for very iterating on your game. Sozo, which is a bunch of tools to migrate and work with the with your contracts on Katana, and Tori, which is not quite complete just yet, but it's a indexer, and you can run them all by just pulling them like this. And so that just started a Starknet DevNet server. So that's really all it takes to get up and running. And if everybody remembers the headache that was like 6 months ago of Starknet, well, if you didn't, you're well. Um, so yeah, so this game that I built in Dojo is a simple just rock paper scissors commit reveal scheme. And for those that don't know what a commit reveal scheme is, it's just like basically just commit reveal. So on the first move, oh actually I've got it down here. So on the first move, you just like submit a it's only rock paper scissors, right? So there's only 3 options, but when you make a move, you just commit like a hash of your move, and so no one actually knows what your move is. And then the next move, you actually just then you submit like the secret and your move data, which checks that you've actually submitted the right hash the second time, and then the contracts to check, and then the game gets resolved. So this is actually a pretty common theme. It's nothing new, but it's pretty useful in on-chain games. So so the way I got started thinking about this game was, and the way you get started in any Dojo game is you define a few components. And so this is how you define a component. I'm kind of jumping forward. Like I'm hoping everyone actually has a kind of understanding of Cairo, because I don't know if we can go through like Cairo today. This is going to be around Dojo. So if this is a little too advanced, I guess go and get familiar with Cairo and then come back and watch this. But yeah, we can't go through all the little bits of Cairo 1 today. Yeah, so a Dojo project has like a few things. It's got basically it's made up of systems and it's made up of components. And so this is when you write this in Dojo, you just like this is all you write, but the Dojo edits the Cairo compiler. It's like extends it, and it expands all this out into a bunch of it basically expands it out into a bunch of other code that then allows you to call it easily in your systems. And so you can imagine a game like this game right now has 2 components, but you can imagine a more complex game might have like 20 components, but you just create them like this. And components are in an ECS system, which I glanced over. We go over into the component system. So an entity component system isn't really new either. Like most major modern game engines actually use it. Unity uses it. Unreal has a version of it. And there's a bunch of like open source versions of it. But it was originally actually designed by guys making MMOs in like 2006, I think, when they were thinking of ways to make their codes cleaner, basically, and create uh, like an easier way to add more elements to your game world without repeating yourself. And so the way entity component system works is you have components which are like your state of the game. And so this could be like like health, for example. And components are like they're like borrowed like entity, like they're shared between entities.
Sorry, Loaf, to interrupt again. Someone asking as well to zoom a bit more. Apparently,
More.
yeah, a bit more. And also someone else is asking to share the repo, but I guess this repo will be shared as well at the end, or
Yeah. I'll share all the code. Don't worry. Yeah. No, I'll hang on. I'll zoom in again. Well. Okay. Is that good?
yeah, I guess no, it's like on my side. Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay. Hang on. I'll just drop a link to the that's the code base I'm just going through.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, so a component is like it's a shared state between entities. And so, for example, if you have a game that has goblins and humans, they both have health. So you just have one health component rather than a goblin health component and a human health component. You just have health. And you define the well, I'll get to that in a second. And so that's components. So you can like health, position, etc. Anything that's like generic that can be shared between entities, so you don't have to repeat yourself. And a system is in a Dojo world, a system is like a single execute logic, and so a system executes on your component, and it's just all your logic. It doesn't contain any state. It's pure logic, but it acts on components. Now, entities. This is what some people get confused about. Like entities don't exist. Like you don't create an entity like shape or code anywhere. An entity is just purely a key, and you use the key to call the entity's components. And so you use the key and you'll get the health of that entity, for example. And that's all an entity is. It's just a key. And what that allows is that as your game grows, your human has health and position, and then maybe it has a potion, and you can just add a potion component, and then you just like give it a value, and then then your game expands. And so it's really simple, and it's a big breakthrough in designing games and contracts, because it allows you to really abstract your state from your logic and make everything neat and tidy, especially when it comes to contracts, because they're a bit of a nightmare to write sometimes. But Caro 1 is actually a dream. So there is that. So yeah, so that's a 101 on an ECS system. But there's a lot of there's a lot of good reading material about ECS systems. There's an awesome ECS GitHub, which has like every question you could ever ask about an ECS system. So if you're very new to it, go and try and find that and read that. But once it clicks in your head, it's easy. But it just takes a little while to like kind of think like this. If you're coming from like another train of thought. But once it does, it's beautiful. So yeah, so in this in this rock paper scissors game, we have components and systems, and this is how a Dojo world is structured. We write our state, which is our components, and so this in the game, we have a player, we have a challenger, we have rounds, we have a winner, and then we have player wins and challenger wins. Could probably be named better, but these are just defined like how many times a player has won a round. And obviously, once it gets to the right amount of rounds, then the winner can be determined. And a turn just stores the state of a move. So it'll store the hash, or it'll store like a rock, paper, or scissors. That's it. That's all you need to do when you're writing state in Dojo. Can we assume we will always have a game component as? Not really. No. I wouldn't assume that. Like every game is going to be different. This is just like a very simple like rock paper scissors. I mean, I can't imagine people. I mean, we should try and put this live. It'd be kind of funny playing this in a browser, but I like it's a. You don't really need a game component, or you could have like a. I mean, you could, but yeah, I wouldn't assume it. Every game's going to be different. The best way to think about writing components is just like what can be shared. This is probably actually not the best example of an ECS system because I'm just trying to make a simple game. But yeah, I'll share the roll your own repo, which is a good example, and the Eternum repo, which has a lot more abstraction explaining components. But I thought this would just be a quick foray into writing a Dojo world. And so once you've got your components, you can move to your systems. Now I've put all the systems in this file, but you can easily just split them out. I just did this for sanity whilst I was hacking it together. And so this is the system in Dojo. It's just you just indicate it with an attribute like this. And once you do this, and same with the components, by the way, you need to do this. And then the compiler picks it up and does it correctly. It gives it serialization or whatever it needs. So that's very important, otherwise the compiler won't work. And so system, you just do this, do an attribute, and then you create a mod, and you write your function in here. And the system just has a singular execute function. And this is all your game logic. And so what I'm doing here is, and this is just create game. And so when this system gets called, it executes, and I just pass in, this is actually like Dojo context. So this gets passed into every system. It allows us to like extract out like the caller and any other information. And then we just pass in rounds, which is my custom logic, which is just the the amount of rounds that this game will be played, and it automatically increments with this little shorthand. So I would suggest reading about the commands in Dojo. This is what I was explaining before about what Dojo does at the compiler level. So this is not like Cairo language. This is like custom custom syntax, custom Dojo syntax. This part. And so when we do commands, there's a bunch of commands, but UID just gets a incremented ID, which is helpful. And then set entity this is where we set the state of an entity. And in my case, the entity key is the game ID. And so I am namespacing each game entity by its ID. And so I can then query any game state by the game ID. And then I'm just passing in a struct, the game struct component of the the shape that it is. And then this stores the state in the Dojo database, which then can be queried later. And then I just return the game ID. And so it's a pretty simple system. And then the next system is join game. And in this system, we are just passing in a game ID, which then with the game ID, we query the entity, which returns the game shape, which is this. And then we just pluck the challenger, which is the caller, whoever's calling this system, and we just check that there isn't a challenger that exists already. There's a few things in here that need to be fixed. And then we just set the entity again. So we set the same game ID. We set just keep the player the same. We add the challenger. We add keep the game rounds the same, and we just keep the rest the same. But now our game is totally set up between between the player and the challenger. Just looking at the comments. Our commands basically used to interact with my world. Yeah, they're used within the contracts, so they're like shorthand. Like, so you could write this longhand if you wanted to, but it'd be like, it'd be like this long. And so they're like little helper commands that allow you to just bootstrap your game, and it takes a lot of the boilerplate that you need to rewrite when interacting with systems, right? Because there's a lot of different components and systems here, and we don't want to have to like remember and like hard code everything, like write longhand every time we want to query something. Like this itself, like this is quite long. This command, this would be like 5 lines, but the Dojo compiler just turns it into a command, and so you can just focus on writing your core logic. And then the commit system is just takes in a game ID and a commit hash. It checks that a player checks if a turn's already happened. If a turn hasn't happened, you can commit your hash, and the hash is just a Poseidon hash of your move and a secret, and then it stores it in the turn component, and then we do that for each player. So that's pretty simple. And then there's a reveal system, which just takes the secret and the move, and then it actually it hashes that in the system, and then it checks that if your previous hash matches the new hash, and if it does, then you can actually submit your move, so like your actual rock paper or scissors, and then that gets stored in the turn. But that's public at that point. But you couldn't have cheated because you have to submit the move that you first submitted with your hash, and then both players do that, and then there's a resolve, and a resolve just checks who, but basically just checks who won. So it queries the game, queries the turn, and then just calculates the winner, and then saves. Well, it increments the challenger wins or the player wins, or if it's a draw, nothing happens. Yeah, and so this is that's the whole game basically. And so I think I've been going for like 43 minutes now. I'll just quickly deploy it, and I'll show you guys how easy it is. And so and so first we just want to get Katana up. So we can go Katana seed 0, which just makes a deterministic account pattern, which we can reuse. And then I'll go allow. Yeah. And then we can go Sozo, which is one of the Dojo commands, Sozo build. So what that's done is that's compiled the all the systems and components in here. And then what we need to do is then we can deploy it. I just first need to, in the Scarab, Tom, you can put environment variables in here. which is really handy. You can like put your private key, and so when you use Sozo to interact with your world, it'll pluck your address and private key from here, and it'll also take the world address. But I'll just comment this out when you do this part. So when you go Sozo migrate, it will just deploy all those systems and components onto the world. And then it's created this output, this world address, which is this address. But if this exists like this, it won't work. So you have to comment it out when you're deploying. And now we've got this game deployed on Katana with Sozo, which is pretty cool. So that's like 0 to 1 in like 3 hours. And now we can just call our contract like this. So you can just go Sozo execute create game, and I'm passing in call data 3. If you remember, that's the number of turns. And you see that worked. I submitted the game. And what you want to do if you're playing like multiplayer is you can. I'm just going to make another window here. Because that you can, if you go into this directory, you look at this here. There's actually another Scarab terminal in here, and this has different account and private key. And so when I do Sozo in here, it will use this, and it will allow me to play like as another player, and so I can, test multiplayer. And so then I can just need to pass this in. Hey, yay, and that worked. And then I can go back to my single player. I can commit my Poseidon hash. I made a little CLI tool here, which creates the Poseidon hash. So yeah, I'll put that in the README. Where were we? Oh yeah. And so I've committed my hash, and then I can commit my player 2 hash, and then I can. This is where I've got a bug somewhere. This won't work. Yeah, that didn't work. But player 2 does work. So my player 2 paper command has worked, and that's in there now. But player 1 is bugged for some reason. I didn't get to that. But if someone figures out that bug, yeah, you're a legend. So yeah, that's how you interact with it. So you can create a bunch of different CLI commands for testing. In the future, I mean, like right now, Dojo is very like I would focus on getting familiar with all the contracts and building your game like out on the contracts. I'm not too concerned about clients for this hackathon. Really curious to see what people can come up with Dojo, and interesting games, and just with the contracts. Yeah, but I mean, in like 2 to 4 weeks, Dojo's like client side and indexing side will probably be a lot more robust, and then you can build the client side. I kind of my mental model when I'm building these games is I just like go CLI first. I go CLI first, check it's fun, and then client. Don't really bother with the client until like I've checked the game. Yeah. So yeah, I mean that's most of it. That's we're going for about 45 minutes now. So any other
Nice.
questions?
Yeah, that was really interesting on my end, at least. Yeah, I can see a new question from Chilax. If I want to test
Ah,
automatically the game, yeah.
yeah, no, exactly. So I've got in here. This is also a testing suite which I didn't go over. But you can build your test system up like this, and so you can build a really robust testing system for your game, which I'd highly advise to do. Like build very robust unit tests, and then build you know then build like end-to-end tests, and then muck around with CLIs. Great.
Great. Up. Maybe if anyone has still questions, but anyway, Loaf contacts will be available in the description of the YouTube video. So if you still have question looking through the Dojo book or any others, yeah, thanks for the notion. And yeah, so like the contact of Loaf will be available as well. Ask the question into the Telegram chat if you have as well, and we'll be pleased as well to redirect you to the relevant people.
Yeah, and just yeah, reach out to me on Discord or whatever, and I'm happy to answer any other questions or help out in any way.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, I'm sure as well that the Realms and Biblioteca DAO Discord is a source of like great chats and great discussion as well. So feel free as well to jump there and shoot them out. I know that Realms and like Dojo has like a huge community, so not only Love but other people will as well. Please to help you.
Yeah, yeah, there's a lot of people in there, and also the cartridge guys are doing another talk on Dojo in like 5 hours. So definitely, if you can make that, because I know Brody's going over another game he made, and so he'll do another run through, and he'll probably go deeper than me. And his game probably isn't doesn't have a doesn't have a bug, so I definitely recommend watching that too.
Yeah, thanks for suggesting that. So yeah, if there are no other questions, I think it's a good time to wrap up. Thanks a lot, Loaf, for once again participating into one of my hackathon. It's always a
Yeah.
pleasure. Uh,
Yeah,
and yeah,
pleasure.
and
Anytime.
see you next time. Are you coming in Paris maybe?
I am coming to Paris, so all you
Nice.
Frenchies, I'll see you there.
So maybe we'll be able to touch you in real life.
Yeah, looking forward to some wine.
Of course. See you, man,
Yeah.
and have a
All
nice
right.
day or evening
Thanks,
at
guys.
yours. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.